Welcome back to In Pursuit of Magic, where we explore the things that inspire us, connect us, and the magic we find along the way. I'm Matthew Medina, and today's very special guest is an incredibly talented actor musician who's starred in some iconic productions like Dear Evan Hansen, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Picnic at Hanging Rock. I'm very, very excited to welcome Gillian Jackson Han. Gillian, thank you so much for being on. It's fun seeing all the stuff you've been a part of and such fun and different roles from each other. And we'll even dive into Netflix and being in The Beast in Me because that seemed like a fun
Oh,
time on set that specific day. But yeah, I'm
I
just
know.
grateful to have you on here. I know how busy your schedule can be when you're a performer.
Busy or unreasonably unbusy.
Yeah. It's like either a
Think
drought or it's like a flood. It's always back and forth.
it's a drought or a flood.
Well, I'm excited to learn what your first inspirations were when it came to being a performer between music or
Mm,
dance and acting. Was there something from an
mhm.
early age that you saw or a performer, or was it just something innate in you that pulled you toward that?
That's a great question. I mean, musical theater was sort of a jumping off point. I mean, I realized much later in my life that being a choir kid actually shaped a lot of who I am and built the passion for music in a way that I didn't really appreciate as a child. But no, I would say musical theater definitely was the source of it. And I think, when I was really little, I saw Beauty and the Beast on tour, and that was the first time I ever was. So I saw magic in front of me, and then seeing South Pacific at the Lincoln Center was the first time I saw people that looked like me on stage. And so that was an important one. And then, when I was an angsty teenager and was listening to Next to Normal over and over and over, really locked in my love.
For sure, it's amazing how shows that really touch on something personal just stay with you and they kind of affect your outlook on things. How old were you when you started in choir? I'm curious.
uh, Immediately from the moment that choir was something that anyone, oh my gosh, I mean, it must have been as early as like a preschool, pre-K, kindergarten
Wow.
thing. And then that until I was 21 years old, until I was a senior in college. I was in, yeah. So that's, I don't know, I would say at least like 15 years of my life, I was in choir. It was something I had to do at least once a week for 15 years. And then all of a sudden, when I was a senior in college, I was like, something feels different. Something feels like it's missing from my schedule. I feel like there's something I'm supposed to do that I'm not doing. And then I realized it's that I didn't have chorus rehearsal. So, yeah.
It's amazing because yeah, it's clear from an early age you got comfortable with being in front of people and performing it in an ensemble, but also like in front of an audience, which is
Yeah. It never changed.
and
My
I'm
mom has
curious
an
after
anecdote.
you had those. Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say my mom has an anecdote that when I was 2 years old, maybe they took us to the national choir in DC, the National Women's Chorus maybe, and I rushed the stage. Like, we were sitting on the aisle and I I bounded away toward the stage. Yeah.
And so it's clear you knew where you belonged, that you belonged up on that stage and
Well, I knew
performing,
where I
and you were
wanted to be
comfortable
for
there.
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think there's a bigger symbolism there that there's something
Sure.
probably a part of you that when you're on stage, you feel at home, which is a beautiful
That
part of
is
that,
true.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that you're doing it shows that you're on the right path. And so I'm curious, was there a moment early on where you were on stage and you were like, "Yeah, this is what I wanna do the rest of my life in some way?"
Oh, it's so interesting. I wish there was a clear moment, but I think it was a more peaceful realization than just a moment of clicking in. It was just, I know what I want to do, and I I can't. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I wish there was some like magical instinct that kicked in all of a sudden, but I think it was just, I don't think my life would be complete without this thing. And it was just a slow, peaceful acceptance of the fact that my life will not be what I want it to be if I don't pursue this. And I think there's something, there's like this sort of belief and mindset that some actors or performers will spew, and that's, if you can imagine yourself doing anything else in the world, don't do this. And I think that's sort of an exclusionary mindset. I don't really know if I've never really accepted that as truth, because a lot of actors and performers and incredibly talented people that you think you can't imagine doing anything else are passionate people that care about the world and care about things and would be really smart and great in other fields, but they've chosen this. And I think there's something really powerful about wanting it rather than needing it and
Yeah.
wanting it so badly that you've chosen to do it.
I think that's a beautiful outlook to have, though, especially in such a creative field, because I've heard a lot of people who are performers say something similar and how
Yeah.
there's other passions they also have that feed different
Yeah.
parts of them. And like you said, this field has like times where there's a lot going on and other times where it's not so much. And that can
Hmm.
get hard if you don't have other passions that are feeding you and filling your cup and you can dive into. And it also
Absolutely.
shows that there's a larger world, and so, yeah, I think
Yeah.
wanting it also maybe do you think that that feeds the fire to keep you going when things do get tough?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Totally. It absolutely does. I think at the end of the day, it's nice to know that I could be good at many different things. And it sort of feels like safety, but it's also just it's a nice reminder to self that I'm here because I actually really want to be here, not because there's something forcing me or this out of my control force that's pushing me into a place I don't want to be. Yeah. So I think that's right.
Yeah, and I think part of that experience is also it feels very solitary sometimes, even though there's so many
Mm.
other people also chasing the same dreams, trying to do similar things.
Yeah.
And you probably have a different scale of people. There's those who are very much, I want to do this alone. Don't bother me. I'm focused. And there's others who are like, no, let's lean on each other. So for you, what
Yeah.
has community and friendships, how's that affected your experience and helped?
I think, I mean, this is a largely connections based field and industry, which is sometimes really frustrating and sometimes really wonderful because you get to form community with people that you otherwise wouldn't. And sometimes that can feel initially forced almost like you have to make the connection in order to get somewhere. And then it turns out it's a lifelong friendship. It's someone you will never not have. I feel like I just talked in a few different circles there, but I would say I have made some incredible friends just through professional work and that I have maintained professional connections through people I already knew as friends. And I think there's an idea that this is such a competitive field, which, statistically it is, right? There are so many of us and so few jobs, but it's not typically competitive in the way that people aren't, shoving each other out of the way to get to an audition. People aren't, in my experience, aren't talking poorly about other people behind their backs to casting in a way that would ruin their careers. People really want their friends and colleagues to be successful. And so I think that's a really nice way to
Mm.
way to think about it.
Yeah, and I think it's necessary in such a difficult field because there's ups and downs and in betweens. And I think part of the beauty is seeing how everyone kind of knows each other, or there's like a friend of a friend, and you see like, oh,
Mhm.
like they're in that circle, they know each other, or they're working on that because they
Yeah,
knew each other from this other thing. And that's like
yeah,
a beautiful thing to see a lot, which I think can
yeah.
be very helpful
It
because yeah,
definitely
chasing a
is.
dream has a lot of obstacles, setbacks. Sometimes there's closed doors. Sometimes you think you're going to get to a path by going one way, and it's just a whole other way to get there. But what is your advice and experience with managing that?
With managing what specifically?
Just any kind of setbacks or disappointment or
Oh, oh,
hearing a
oh,
no
yeah.
and how to not let that stop you.
I have to go back in my journals to find out what the actual answer to that is. Because I think, no job I've ever gotten, I've expected. I've never once correctly anticipated whether or not I would get a job or not, and they've all kind of taken me by surprise. I don't know, I don't have, like, an extensive resume. I haven't I'm not someone who's, like, worked, like, back to back, job after job, but now I have managed to establish enough of my little career. Sorry, this is my cat, Twig. He wants to be part of
Very
the
cute.
party. That I trust the right thing will happen at the right time. and I trust my technique. I trust my place in the that I have a place in this field, in this world, in this life. So that's how I feel now. It's hard to say how I've always accepted it, and I'm sure, and don't get me wrong. There are ups and downs, and there are breaks in my faith, in my beliefs in that, for sure. There are moments of doubt, but then I can look back peacefully and think, okay, well, I didn't expect any of these. So what's what would stop me from trusting that there's another one down the road? So that's where I am now.
I think that's part of the beauty of it, though. Ending up
Yeah.
in places you didn't expect, having surprises come along your way, and you are clearly
Yeah.
where you're meant to be. You're doing the thing, which is the hardest part,
Oh,
putting yourself out there and doing the actual thing. And
yeah.
it seems like your path is one that's gonna be filled with surprises. And you're right, like remembering where you were in the mindsets as it was happening, sometimes it's hard because now you're always evolving in those mindsets and you're like taking it
Definitely.
as it comes. And yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
fluctuate. It's hard to keep that faith all the time. You're gonna have those
Yeah.
moments. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're doing it alone and there's others who are like fully in and believing in it and they're like, yeah, we
Yeah.
got this. And you're like, well, I'm trying to get this.
Yeah. I want to trust myself that much. It's hard to be yeah. I think in a world that is so dominated by people that look a certain way, and it's hard to feel like there will always be a place for you, and I think now, at least, I believe there will always be a place. It's just sometimes I'm gonna have to wait a little longer to find it. So yeah.
It's funny that I think that answers my next question, which is what advice would you give to others who are also trying to pursue something and are struggling with those doubts and insecurities when they feel overwhelmed?
Oh, totally. Remember, first and foremost, to be a good actor, you have to have lived experiences. You have to be a person. There are so tempting to kind of throw yourself into it in a way that feels like, well, there's no way that I can't have this life because I'm working so hard and I'm at dance classes all the time and I never take a break and I never do anything. Take care of yourself as a human being, because to tell honest stories, you have to actually live life and experience things, and it's okay. And everyone's on a different path. The thing that I always have to remind myself is that, again, everyone's on a different path. Journeys to success and the definition of success are different for everybody. Anytime it gets too overwhelming and you're starting to play the comparison game, delete social media, take a break, delete Instagram, deactivate it for a little while, and you will find a whole new zest for life and for work. And trust your technique. Trust that someone will need you for exactly at what you are. Yeah. I needed space because even when our connection just cut out just now, I logged onto Instagram to fill the 2 minutes. And, I'm an actor. A lot of my cohort is actors. And I logged on and saw, like, my best friend is walking the carpet for the tour she's on now, and she looks amazing. And this other person who I went to college with, who's posting about his new show. And it's all just, there's so much overload, but people don't post about the things that they don't get. People aren't posting about all the auditions that went into that audition. And sometimes it's just nice to give your mind and your heart a break from seeing. I basically only use social media as to report on the things that are happening in my career now. I don't really use it for myself, like for personal life anymore, partially because it was just feeling a little too chaotic. And I needed to separate real life from social media, because there's no honest way to really represent what life looks like. And yeah. So every once in a while now, I don't delete my Instagram, but I deactivate it, or I just take the app off my phone. And that gives me just a huge peace of mind. And, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone was saying, we were not supposed to know this much. Humanity was never supposed to know as much about one another and about the things going on in far reaches. This is my other cat. We were not supposed to know as much as we do about other people's lives, basically. And what that has done to our brain chemistry, we'll never really know. So I just try to, as often as I can, as long as it's realistic, I'm in a realistic time for me myself to do it. We'll take myself off of social media. It's just too hard. It's too hard to constantly be playing the comparison game.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart move, and it's good for your mental health and also just for your journey. Like, you're curating your life experience and protecting
Hmm.
it in a lot of ways. That's important because then there's the real connections with other people that are happening in real life and not online, which is part of the beauty of that. And I'm sure even behind the scenes on stage, preparing for a show, rehearsing, performing, and meeting the audience after, there's something special about that that's very different from what goes on online. So I'm glad that you found a way to manage that for yourself. And I think it's good advice for anyone listening to protect their peace and keep their inspiration going. We're talking a lot about your experiences, both, the good ones and the harder ones. And I'm curious, when you are rehearsing or performing or preparing for a show, where do you end up finding magic most? Is it in the creative rehearsal process? Is it performing for an audience? Is it working alongside other people and kind of figuring out what you're going to do?
Uh, I would say, and I've said this before, never eloquently, is that I think magic is in community. So I think part of the reason choir was so impactful for me is because a group of people making music or experiencing music or making art together in any way, I think that is magic. So and some people, I think, I think to some people that is God, that is spirituality. I think, and that is, yeah, I think that is magic. So anytime that can be in the rehearsal process, my gosh, the first time you make something magical with another group of people is extraordinary. It's glorious. There's nothing else like it in the world. But that does, I mean, that happens on stage as well. I think if you're really lucky, you get to experience it, 8 times a week for a year. That's incredible. That's incredible. That and hopefully even if an experience is less than remarkable for whatever reason, hopefully you still get to find those pockets of magic in that greater, larger experience.
Yeah, I think community is such a big and beautiful part of the whole experience when it comes to anything creatively. And I think especially when you're on
Yeah.
stage, which is a whole other experience because you are working with so many different people and personalities and backgrounds and people having their own stories and dreams that are bringing them there together to work on the same thing. So seeing it come together must feel
Where
very
do you most
magical
find
and
magic?
special. It's a good question.
I'm
For me,
curious.
it's interesting because I always ask others that question, and I never really answer it for myself, and I think for the longest time, it was in seeing the creative outcomes of other people who believe in what they're doing and putting out something beautiful. I mean, I grew up on Disney movies and music, and I read all the time, and so I was always drawn to stories about characters with dreams and overcoming obstacles, or characters who didn't have much of a family and found a chosen family. Things like that always drew me towards it, and I found a lot of magic in that. And I think the magic I've discovered is all those stories, while fictional, came from real people with lived experience, and there's truth in them, even in the
Yeah.
most like crazy animated, fantastical settings. And that
Yeah.
same thing with Broadway shows and musicals. Like, I mean, there's so many stories that are there that the method is over the top, and yet there's a real human story there. And I
Yeah.
think now not only do I still experience that through those stories, but I think talking to people like you, I feel a lot of magic because I feel like, yeah, you understand, you get it, and you're living it, and you're doing it, and you're feeling it too. And I think it just connects me to something larger, and I think that's something very beautiful.
I just had a moment while you were speaking. I think we just boiled it down. I think magic is in human connection. And that
Yeah.
comes in all sorts of vehicles. That's that's really beautiful. That's really beautiful. I'm glad you could take I wanted to hear your answer, so thanks for sharing.
No, it's a perfect
You're
question
doing
because
it
that's a big
too.
reason why I started this podcast. I've been so yeah, I'm trying. I really wanted to create something that I could bring on people who inspire me and who I admire and I'm proud of and I see doing the thing and give them a space where they could share their stories and inspirations and how they overcome hard times, but also anyone listening to know that they're not alone and they're connected and they're part of something larger. There's other people who have the same feelings and dreams and hopes and wishes. And I think sometimes we get lost in our own heads because what we're experiencing feels so personal. And yet, yeah, human
Yeah,
connection is so vitally important. And I think that's what creates the most beautiful stories in the end of the day.
absolutely. Yeah. That's a great reason to do anything.
And speaking of beautiful stories, one of my favorites growing up was Hunchback of Notre Dame, which you got to play Esmeralda for. So I'm very curious about that experience
Well,
because it's such a beautiful role playing that character.
sure. I mean, I understudied Esmeralda, so I didn't really get to play her.
Still,
But I did in the rehearsal room. It's not that understudying isn't, but I would like to preface it with that I never went on, but I did learn the material and I did rehearse for it. That's just got to be Alan Menken's best work. I mean, it is monumental and I mean, unlike anything else in the musical theater world, I think the reason, don't quote me on this, but I think the reason it wasn't able to go to actually have a life on Broadway was because he wrote for a whole choir, which is like a different union or something, or a different like union rule because
yeah.
you have to have all these people on stage. But it is, I mean, it is, oh my gosh, that music never gets old. That score never gets old. It's, um, it's devastating. I mean, it covers a lot of huge and controversial topics that are really that are told fully and told well. And I don't think that's yeah, that score and that show do not get as much love as they should because it is really really extraordinary. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah, no,
you're right though about the reasons.
what's
I
that?
heard the same reasons. It
Sure.
has to do with the choir.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's great. Like
They were like,
the
it's too
character is
massive of an
written
ensemble.
brilliantly. I mean, yeah, it's like I mean that's a huge choir he wrote for. So that maybe that's just the story of this show is that when it gets done in a really special way. I mean, imagine it in like Red Rocks Amphitheater or something. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, what's so beautiful, like you said about the show, is the topics it covers and still so timely. It's still things like that happening. And I think it's such it powerful and like heavy musical that I feel like that's the reason why like it needs to be done right. And if it can't be done right, there's no point in doing it halfway. I think it's a big reason why I think Disney has been wanting to develop a live action remake and they canceled that because it's just how do you do this correctly in a way that like honors it, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, also to be fair, you know, Notre Dame was burned. It's still being rebuilt. So if they wanted
Yeah.
to shoot on location, they would need to wait a few years just to be rebuilt. So,
Oh
oh
yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
But as I'm sure that experience was special, even just being in that rehearsal room and learning the lines, learning the songs, learning everything. You were on the first national tour for Dear Evan Hansen. And so
Yes.
I'm curious about that experience because it's such a big and special show and another powerful one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been really lucky that a lot of the jobs that I've done have had a really big fan base and a really devoted fan base. And that Dear Evan Hansen being my first, big professional gig was I was so lucky. I was so lucky. Um, it's a small cast. It was the first time I'd ever been on stage and had parents that looked like me. That was really cool and looked like my parents. And I met my best friends there. We have matching blue heart tattoos. And again, the fans really like powered the ship. It was amazing. I mean, every city we went to, we had people waiting at the stage door and we would get messages. I mean, I was an understudy, so I went on a lot, but I didn't even go on. I wasn't even on stage every night, and we would still all get messages about how important our work was, and that's really kind of essential when you're going on tour because it's hard. Touring is hard. You're away from home, and so to know that what you're doing is important and matters to people is really cool. Is really cool.
That up, not
Definitely.
knowing how
Yeah.
each venue on your feet. And I feel like
Yes. I was very lucky that we were on like a very cushy union tour. So we couldn't work on travel days. Amazing. Because I
yeah,
mean, if anyone who's done a non-union tour has like done the hardest thing in this industry, truly. That is amazing.
for sure.
And yeah, so we were treated very, very nicely on that tour.
Every experience is different.
Yeah, the people always are the things that make or break an experience, for sure. Yes, and you talked to my friend Marina. She's the best. We had, I will
Yes.
say, there was a conversation that happened. Amazing. There was a conversation that happened in the dressing room toward the end of the show, and I think it might have been Tatiana who said it, that if we did, someone said, if I had to do every show for the rest of my life with this group of girls, with this cast, I'd be I'd be happy. I would be set. And I think that was largely a universal feeling. It was just it was incredibly kind, supportive, safe, and loving group of people. I think it was really cool for us to be in an almost entirely female cast, a very youthful cast. I mean, it was just amazing. Like I would not trade in, truly, like no bad eggs, no bad eggs in that room. And that doesn't happen all the time. And there was no no drama among cast. We were in some of that like process, and some of the conditions were like, we were in like a church from 1920 in the dead of winter. Like that's a tough place to be putting up a show. And never was there an attitude that made it a bad experience. That's really cool. um, and I hope we all get to do it again. But I will say, we just got a rough cut. Well, maybe I'm not supposed to say this. I just heard a rough cut of one of the songs from our cast album, and it's so good. I'm so excited.
That's very becoming such an incredible
Oh,
experience.
yeah. I do hope we get to do it again sometime somewhere, just to be, for no other reason than to be together again, because it's a really, really cool and um just just the best group of girls, best group of people.
That
It
happens
was
all the time where
Yeah.
you're like, man, a really special experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all left with,
And then I have the
with
beast in
people that
me,
were closer
which
to me.
is really thrilling. It's about
Mhm.
your big house,
Yeah.
even though you guys
So much fun. Oh, the little safari outfit. Yeah, originally the hat had like these straps that connected onto the chin, and I'm so glad they nixed the straps though, because it was not the best. It was for the 2 lines that I gave. I was on set for 3 days, which, I mean, I'm grateful for. I was a little bored day 2 when I still wasn't used, but but I'm so grateful for that extra time, because I got to meet and hang out with and learn from the actors that were on that the other principal actors. And I kind of just sat there and watched the whole thing happen and learned a lot through that experience. So typically, if you're on the cool thing about shooting on location, what that gave me access to was, because I was um a co-star, so I was like a titled character with a line. I was in the same holding room as all the other principal actors. And if we were shooting on a soundstage or pretty much any other environment, I would not have been able to do that. But well, because we were shooting on location, there were no like trailers or holding rooms. So we were all just in one big room. And when I say we, I mean Claire Danes, Matthew Reese, Julianne Emery, Brittany Snow. Like we were all like in the same little area waiting to go downstairs for footage, for coverage. And I was sitting there like, what is happening? Like, how am I here? How am I here right now? And I will say, I've done a lot of background work. I've done a lot of like feature, not a lot, a little bit of like background. I've been on big sets before, and I remember every single person who went out of their way to be kind to me as someone who was bottom of the call sheet. That is a really cool. I mean, it means so much. It means so much when people are
Last thing I was talking about was Claire Danes in the makeup trailer, and like 5 in the morning, and she was really lovely and polite and introduced herself and chatted with me for a while. And in that very scene that I was in, I was on screen with Matthew Rhys very briefly, and he at some point offered to show me, like asked if I wanted to see the monitor to like see myself on camera. And I ended up having this wonderful dinner and powwow with Jonathan Banks and Julianne Emery, and they were just wonderful to me. Truly, everyone that I interacted with on that set was incredible. Also, like, you know, I grew up watching Britney Snow, so I was most intimidated by her, but she was great too. So overall, it was a wonderful experience.
Which is incredible because I think you said how human connection is what a lot of things come down to and make or break an experience, but also just
Yeah,
it's really special in general, just living life and connecting with others. And I think that's always a beautiful thing to walk away from, where you see other people following the same dream as you and doing the thing. And
yeah,
there's no real separation there. I think when others who are established for a while and maybe are so used to this can welcome you in and just make it a comfortable setting and situation, that just makes the setting so much more beautiful and experience for you. So that's really great
yeah.
to
It
hear,
really does.
especially because there's such a difference sometimes between working on stage and then working on film. And it's not always
Oh
the
my gosh,
same in terms of pace, in terms of people, in terms of how long you're there. And so it could always be very, very different. So that's really great to hear.
truly, yeah. It's a totally different. It's a form completely.
And I'm curious, before we wrap up, how do you hope to create magic for other people?
Oof. I hope that no matter what I do, there are people who can see themselves in whatever I make, whatever. And that, I mean, that is in the industry and outside. I hope people can see themselves in however I live, on stage, off stage. I would love to be the source of inspiration for, I mean, it happens every once in a while where I'll get a message from someone, and usually an AAPI, ANHPI girl who sees themselves in me and is really grateful for anything that I do. But even people not in that demographic, I would love people to understand and relate to the work that I do and the life that I live.
I think that's beautiful. And again, it comes back to the human connection and feeling seen and like you're part of something and you're not alone. And I think you're doing it. So I think you're doing a beautiful job, and it's clear that you're a magic maker in what you're doing. And before I let you go, I just want to ask: is there anything you're working on that you're
Right
allowed to
back at
talk about? I know you hinted at one thing
what you said. Is there anything that I'm working on right now?
that you're allowed to talk about. I know you hinted at one thing.
I'm seeing, well, I have 2 readings coming up. I have no ability to talk about that yet, and hopefully another film project coming out as well sometime this year, but no big stage projects happening yet. But maybe by the time this gets released, that'll be different.
That's awesome and really exciting. So we're going to be keeping an eye. I'm going to drop all your social media below so people can know what you've got cooking up, because I know it's just the start of a big year. And thank you so much for being on, Jillian. It's been an honor and hearing your story and your journey, and just it's so beautiful to hear your take on things and for you being so genuine and vulnerable in your experience, because I think it's super important and it's good for people to hear. So thank you for being on. You are a
I
magic maker.
appreciate. Hey, you too, Matthew. Thank you so much for having me.
And everyone out there, go out there and do some magic. See you next time.